I feel like now all I do is procrastinate when it comes to even trying to get a video out and trying to explain just figuring this whole situation out, because the more I think, the more I want to throw up, because it's just getting to a point now where what do you do here going to this bye week? What changes are going to be made? I can't overly be excited and hyped up like this team is going to be ready to go as they come back to face the Cleveland Browns after this bye week. What changes are going to be made? We're going to be talking top to bottom of what the real issue is. And obviously, I think this roster is going to implode sooner or later. The more they lose games, the worse it's going to get. And there's already a couple players that have already pissed me off already. And we're going to be talking about the Reddick situation as well, because there has been news by Ian Rappaport talking about the Eagles' involvement in getting Hassan Reddick, which really doesn't matter at this point because it just doesn't matter. But we have a lot to discuss here, so let's get into it. Yeah.
A killer buried, but not dead.
Darren, we better turn around. Because I've seen enough horror movies to know any weirdo wearing a mask is never friendly.
Yo, what is going on, guys? I hope everyone's having a fantastic day. I hope everyone's doing really well today, or trying to do well. Now, we're into the bye week, and, hearing from Nick Sirianni post-game, hearing from him yesterday, I mean, the more I try to listen, the more I just can't listen anymore. If Nick talks about fundamentals one more time, I can't even express how much a coach says he's going to try to fix this and tries to say he's going to fix that, and yet there are no results. Behind that rah-rah character of Nick Sirianni, there's nothing to show for it when it comes to the coaching aspect. All right, we know that Nick has been involved in play calling, overtaking play calling from Kellen Moore at certain points. And not only is that going to affect the team, but the quarterback is being affected as well. And this is the statistics, at least through the first 4 games for the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles are tied in the most turnovers. The Eagles are tied fewest in takeaways, top 8 in most penalties, top 10 in missed tackles. And they are the only team without scoring points in the first quarter. And let me tell you something. The big excuse here from everybody is going to be that A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith are not in this offense, and you didn't have your right tackle. And yes, Fred Johnson didn't play the best game, and because that Fred Johnson doesn't have much experience, and when the Tampa Bay Bucks were running stunts to that side, because they knew that Fred Johnson hasn't played with the Eagles at all, only played in 1 game with the Eagles so far, they started running stunts. And obviously, Fred Johnson doesn't really have the chemistry with, if you're watching out for stunts, you're watching for stuff in practice, where if you have to pick up a stunt, it seems like he hasn't done enough practice. He's given up 9. He gave up 9 pressures in that game. Okay. And the blitzes were coming in like crazy. The Eagles couldn't handle it. And obviously beating this, because this team doesn't use checkdowns, because they don't check down the running backs, or they don't give what the defense gives them. Okay. They don't really do anything to make the defense nervous. They just want to throw downfield almost every single time. It's just really bad. And before you can talk about the quarterback, it's got to be the coaching staff before anything, because that puts the quarterback and the rest of this roster in the right position to win football games. And Nick is just fake. I just feel like everything about him is so fake, and everything I have to hear from him is, we will do this, we will do that. Now I'm jumping on Jalen Hurts now, where it's like I have to hear this fake aura from him every week that he's going to do better. It's like Carson Wentz speaking at the podium post press conference all over again. And I'm tired of every week trying to figure out who's in control of this offense. And obviously this is another week where the second half looks better than the first half. And I feel like Kellen Moore is not getting enough of his own play calls into these games. And you can't have dual play calling from multiple coaches. I mean, I've never even heard of that. No team does that. And at this point, guys, this team is not going to beat the Giants. They won't beat Washington. This team can end up last in their division. And it's a really big shame right now. And especially on the defensive side of the ball too, where I think I don't think Fangio has the right players for this scheme. And I think, I don't know how you go from one game of the Saints where you literally locked down for a while, and I feel like they were playing a little bit more closer to their chest last week, and I felt like they just weren't prepared at all this week. I felt like there was more attitude last week and more fight last week, and I felt like they were just everything just was really wrong. Like a continuance of last year. I just feel like it's just the same thing all over again. But really at the end of the day, guys, like, and when I talk about when the Eagles come back off this bye, face Cleveland, they get A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and they get Lane Johnson back. The big excuse, what if they lose with A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith? It's not like they haven't this season. They come back off a bye week, they lose their next game, they look so off. I'm not taking Jalen Hurts off as not the starting quarterback anymore. He needs to fix on his turnovers and a lot more, but I just don't think he has the right coaching staff behind him either. And he's just making some stupid mistakes at games. And he doesn't look relaxed. He doesn't look like he's in somewhat of a just doesn't look like he's somewhat of a he doesn't look like he's comfortable at all. He looks very off from what's going on. Especially running with the football, he looks slow. Sirianni's excuses on the running backs, Saquon Barkley having 10 carries. You know what he says post-game press conference? I mean, he talks about, we had all these 3-and-outs. There's not much opportunities when you're going 3-and-out. It's like, dude, like, you're blaming the 3-and-outs on Saquon Barkley not having enough opportunity? That makes absolutely no sense, dude. I mean, you're using Kenneth Gainwell in the second half more. I mean, how many carries did Saquon have in the second half? I don't think to none or not that much. 2-minute offense, end of the second quarter. How many times do you use Kenneth Gainwell in 2-minute offense? Every single time. Okay, Jahan Dotson, why are you trading for a guy that you're not even using? Olamide Zaccheaus with the Commanders right now for the season has over 100 yards receiving. And literally 5 to 6 weeks in for Jahan Dotson, and he only has 20-something yards. There's something wrong here. Why are you using 3 tight end sets? Why are you getting other receivers involved? Why does everything have to be a downhill spiral pass? Why does everything have to be a gunslinger pass every single time that we run this offense? Why can't you run what the defense gives you? Why can't you make that easy observation of checking the ball down where Saquon can get you an easy 6 to 10 yards easily and make the defense worry about the check down a little bit? Everything is way too bland, way too obvious, and this is where we're at. This is where we're at right now at 2-2, and you're into a bye week now, and there's a lot of questions. And honestly, if Nick even helps this team in any aspect, this team isn't going anywhere. Everything he touches turns to shit, and that's just the truth to it all. Other questions. This is Howie Roseman. This is Jeffrey Lurie. There's a bunch of questions now regarding Howie Roseman. His draft picks, his free agent signings, his trade targets, his trades in general. Brian Baldy put out a video on Bryce Huff the other day on why Bryce Huff is not getting the pressures that he's getting because he's not in a 4-point stance. I mean, really the only difference of what Bryce Huff is not doing, what he did with the Jets to get 10 sacks is obviously a much heavier rotation with less snaps, but Brian Baldy was talking about Bryce Huff in a 4-point stance with the Jets and lining up a little bit wider than usual. And I thought that was just like, in a 2-point stance, do you not get as much explosiveness? Sure. I did that in high school to college. I hated the 2-point stance. You have no explosiveness with your body in the 2-point stance coming off the edge. Would that make a difference? Is that the reason why? I mean, he had 2 pressures in the game, no tackles, no nothing. Why is that guy signed? Why do you trade for Jahan Dotson, giving up a 3rd-round pick and a 6th or a 7th, whatever it was, and you don't even use him? You hired Nick Sirianni to be your game planner. Okay, Frank Reich handed Nick on a silver platter and say, hey, take this coach. This guy is great. And yet, within a year, half of a year, he gives up play calling to Shane Steichen. Shane Steichen should have been the head coach for the Philadelphia Eagles or somewhat at a higher position after 22 because that was the last time the Eagles were actually good. The Eagles were never good in 2023. Okay. I don't know where that Jalen Hurts is, but he doesn't have the right head coach behind him. And I think he's messing up a lot. And I think Hurts is not elite. Hurts is a good quarterback. He's just not elite. I don't think you put him into that you don't really put him into that category because he needs a heavy supporting cast. You give Jalen Hurts an empty back set. I don't trust him to make that throw because I just don't. Because the more times, sorry, I don't know why that just went off. The reason why that's the case, I mean, that's really the main reason why at this point. And you know, some of these draft picks are in question. Like Jordan Davis has fallen off. Jalen Carter at this point, I think there's something there. But I think it's the coaching still behind it. Like, I'm not saying that every move Howie Roseman has made is a bad move. I think, obviously, Jahan Dotson looks really bad right now because of the coaching staff, because they're not giving him enough opportunities. Bryce Huff looks bad because I think, theoretically, it's just a really bad signing. I think getting rid of Hassan Reddick was the biggest mistake they could have made. And because Vic Fangio needs to change he wants his players, the only player that played good, I think the only two players that played good on Sunday was Quinyon Mitchell, because I think he's going to be a stud, and Brandon Graham. Okay. I think there's other talent there. Like, I think Nakobe Dean is still undersized. I feel like his coverage is really bad. He's missing tackles. He missed probably 10 tackles. I mean, I don't know what it was. It was definitely over 6. I heard it was 10. Somebody counted it. But tackling was a big issue. How do you go from one game of holding up to now this game barely even contending, giving so much cushion underneath in this game on Sunday? I just don't get it. And Howie Roseman has a lot to add. A lot of questions go to Howie Roseman. A lot of questions go to Jeffrey Lurie on why they continue to see this process of this collaborative effort with Nick and Kellen Moore. Why is Nick still given the permission to be involved in game planning? He is not a game planner. He was hired to do that when he came to the Philadelphia Eagles. All Nick is a culture setter, okay, and it keeps the roster in check. He is like the therapist, the personality therapist for the Philadelphia Eagles roster, coming off of these games. And I'm sorry, guys, even in this bye week, I'm not believing a damn thing this guy says that he's going to fix all of this, because I just can't believe it. Okay. And if they lose a game with Devontae Smith and AJ Brown being back and they look even worse coming off the bye, especially coming off a bye where guys we're going to look a lot slower coming off the bye week. And usually in recent years coming off bye weeks, they don't necessarily look great. And Nick, these last 2 days in his press conferences, that he's going to fix things. And with the offense, we need to play faster in the first quarter. I mean, we know what you need to do. The issue is not knowing what you need to do, but it's all talk and no show. Jalen Hurts, all talk, no show. It's literally the combination of Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni. I think there is somewhat of dysfunction there. It might not be blowout fights, but there's definitely something going on. The Eagles have not found their identity for this offense yet. No identity at all. And this is where we're at. I could see it when Jalen Hurts talks about Nick. He's just furious over it. Like, there are talks on which direction they're going in. And, your quarterback and your head coach meet every week. Both your coordinators and your GM, your owner, and your coach have a meeting every single week. What is being talked about behind the scenes? This shit can't be swept under the rug for another week, even during a bye week. They have to be as busy as they possibly can, but Nick has got to stay away. But Howie Roseman, on the other hand, has not helped the situation. You're wasting your time as a GM making somewhat good moves towards a really bad situation. You're throwing good on top of a bad problem, and the bad problem is going to take over on what you put on this team roster-wise. That's just what's going on. And you're not throwing money at a problem is not going to fix the problem. Okay? Throwing good situational things on top of a problem is not going to fix the problem either, because sooner or later, it's going to eat everything up. Your roster is going to implode sooner or later, and guess what? No one's going to believe in Nick Sirianni sooner or later when they keep losing games because he's a nice guy. And I know a lot of Eagle fans. I don't know what's up with Eagle fans these days. Well, he's really, if they get rid of Sirianni, the Eagles players are, they're going to leave. They're not going to want to stay. They're not going to believe in the culture anymore. They're not going to. Well, dude, like I might work with somebody at my job that I can't stand, even though I think he's a horrible worker, but I like him. I like him as a person, but he just doesn't do the job right. There's people out there that have jobs that can't do that, and I think Nick is one of those people. Your roster is imploding because Nick Sirianni is not making this roster a tough roster, tough players, gritty players. I feel like there's just excuses every time. Like Avonte Maddox, can't wait till he's out of that inside nickel, that inside corner spot. I'm totally tired of him too. The excuses of the heat and cramping, and why would you even say this? After a loss, it just makes you look more sorry. Just a more sorry excuse as a player. Jesus Christ, guys, like Cooper Dejean better be in this lineup as the inside corner. Okay, by the end of the bye week, I better see Cooper Dejean in there because Avonte Maddox, Jesus, that whiff tackle to Chris Godwin and on the flat pass was the ugliest thing I've ever seen. That was a pure example of how the Eagles played on top of the bad adjustments, no adjustments at all by Vic Fangio going forward. Okay. And then Mr. Darius Slay, again with the same old BS as usual. He deleted one tweet, by the way, and obviously everybody caught on to it because I don't even follow him at this point, but I do see his tweets when they do pop up. He says, "I apologize, Eagle fans," and then he says, "Let me chill today. I'm better than that." It's like a joke, dude. It's like a joke. And you know what he does after that? The one on the bottom on the screen right now. Right here, as you're seeing this one, okay, he literally deleted this. So he knew he was going to get attacked because he was god-awful. He was god-awful, okay? Yes, the defensive line, not getting pressure, not stopping the run is going to affect the whole secondary, but man, he did. Quinyon Mitchell is playing better than him at this point, okay? And Darius Slay says, "Oh, when you talk bad about me, don't forget to mention the greatness of me too." Like, in the moment of when you need your leaders to step up after a loss, especially going into the bye week now, and your leaders are supposed to step up for the occasion, and all he wants to talk about is himself on how his greatness and, "Oh, I played bad this game, but look what I've done in my career." It's the most diva bullshit I have ever seen in my life. And people tell me, "Slay's just this. This is just who he is." And, well, now this isn't about his podcast. Now this is about him saying stupid shit after a game because everyone, you're going to get roasted. Everyone's getting roasted. You know what I mean? Before you talk about me, this is what I've done in my career. And he's putting his statistics up like, come on, dude. I had to add this in the video. This is later on in the day where I saw some other news. I said, you know what? I have to add more context and more to this situation. 24 hours or the next day, not even more than a day of being beat pretty bad, okay, and looking like garbage, especially from specific players that haven't looked and really that good in this defense. And that's big play Slay. Darius Slay, I should say. He jumps on a podcast with Micah Parsons. These two are meant for each other because these are the two that like to make themselves look like idiots every single week when it comes to their own podcasts. So Slay jumps on there. Literally, Micah Parsons is only involved in this because he made a big stink about Chauncey Gardner-Johnson's words in the locker room, okay? After they walked back into the locker rooms after they beat the Saints a week ago, okay, and Micah Parsons got himself in this conversation, okay, last week, calling out Chauncey, and then goes into the stream saying, "Oh, I don't mean any harm against anybody," and blah, 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 and kind of Chauncey answers back at him a little bit for like, "Bro, like, why are you even talking about Eagles players? You just lost the game. You look like shit. Why are you doing this?" And Slay is on here with him, literally clowning on Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. Mr. Leader, Mr. Captain, Mr. Like, what is going on here? Like, what is this behavior? You know what I mean? Like, I know people defend Slay to a point of having opinions and having a podcast. I get it. But you got to realize these are guys that not are famous, but, they get a lot of heat for things that they say. Sometimes they get a target on their back at times during these podcasts. It's stuff like that. So I don't fucking respect any of this that's going on in this podcast. Like, these are the two, look at me, let me get all the attention, want to make myself look stupid. These are the two biggest idiots in the NFC East right now. Right now. So Slade joins him on this podcast, and Slade does talk about the game. It says, we didn't have a great game, blah, blah, blah. But then, like, they're putting up tweets from Chauncey, and this isn't a good look, bro. This is not a good look for you, to the franchise. A day after our asses get beat and just looking embarrassing on both sides of the ball, this just didn't look good at all. And what I've been saying about Slade since last year, this guy wasn't homegrown in Philadelphia, wasn't drafted in Philadelphia. This is the type of shit that you're going to get from, you don't see this shit from A.J. Brown. You don't see this shit, A.J. Brown looks more like a Philadelphia Eagle every single day. But still, he acts like he's been drafted here. Devontae Smith, he don't do this shit. No one else does this shit. It is okay to have a podcast, okay? But between what I said earlier in this video on Slay and what he put up and deleted, his retweets, you can't retweet his comments. You can't retweet his tweets on X at all because he doesn't want the shit to get shared out. He doesn't want to get shit from anybody. And he goes on this stupid podcast, two of the biggest loudmouth, look at me, having to keep their, just don't say the wrong thing at the wrong time. When Philadelphia Eagles are pissed off right now, at least if you did this, do it a week later. A week and a half. But a day later after a brutal loss, Mr. Captain, come on now. This is ridiculous. I want to just mention this. I added this in the video later because I thought it was pretty good context for the shit that he's doing. Don't turn to another Micah Parsons, okay, on a podcast. But this is how Slay has been, unfortunately. He puts up his statistics to defend himself on, before anyone says anything bad about my play, these are my accolades of my whole career. I don't like this attitude a day after we lose a game. Ridiculous. And then we got news on the Reddick situation from Ian Rappaport actually mentioning the Philadelphia Eagles. This was really interesting. So we heard the rumors about Hassan Reddick, and obviously he wouldn't mind coming back to Philly, and there was rumors on that. And then obviously then the Bryce Huff stuff started to happen where he was deleting all of his Eagle posts on Instagram, stuff like that. So this is what Ian Rappaport had to say. He said, the Jet situation with Hassan Reddick still has no resolution, and some wondered if New York could trade him back to the Eagles. Turns out, per NFL rules, not possible. Teams can't trade a player, then reacquire him via trade until 2 years elapse. Reddick won't head back to Philly. So technically, if you trade a player, I guess you cannot acquire him for the next 2 seasons. That's just weird. I've never heard of that. But I guess there is a rule for this within the same year. So guess the Eagles can't get Hassan Reddick within another 2 years. But which I don't think this is going to happen. We'll probably put this thing to bed because at this point, if this is true, then the only way the Eagles can acquire Hassan Reddick is if they cut him. If they can't find a trade partner that's going to get Hassan paid and do the right thing by Hassan, I guess, because the Jets haven't done right by him at all. It looks like there could be a cut. Maybe. He could maybe get cut. But we'll see how it goes. I'm going to put this thing to bed finally since Ian Rappaport really talked about it and put final words on it. But I don't see the Jets completely cutting him unless Hassan Reddick becomes more of a nightmare for them, and he's like, nope, I don't want to get traded there. No, I don't. I mean, it's not really up to him. That the Jets at this point can do whatever they want. They don't have to follow his wishes. But if Hassan is going to be a problem for another team and they don't pay him, or maybe he plays on his $14.5 million for this year. Maybe he says, hey, just give me an extra $2-3 million and I'll be full for the year. I'll go look for a team in 25. We'll put that thing to bed. as well going forward. But other than that, guys, let me know your thoughts on the situation in general going to this bye week. Do you think Nick is actually going to change anything with this team going forward? Offense, defense, fundamentals. Are they going to make it an excuse because A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and why Saquon Barkley hasn't only had 10 carries and the 3 and outs is the main reason why guys aren't getting opportunities? And Jahan Dotson, why isn't anyone else being included in this offense, or at least they're not even drawing plays for other players? It's literally gunslinger Jalen Hurts into oblivion. That's what it is. So that's where we're at with the situation. And that's really it. So, let me know what you guys think. Make sure you subscribe to the channel for more Eagles news every single day. Like the video. This helps the channel out tremendously. Appreciate everybody that did show up to the live stream on Sunday and went with me this whole process of the game. And just, this isn't about taking a side for the Eagles for Howie, for Jeffrey Lurie, for Nick Sirianni, for just on the situation, Jalen Hurts, who should go first. I'm not answering comments on it anymore. I'm done fighting with people. Because I just don't care what anyone else has to really say. I will respect everybody's opinion, but let me tell you, I just want to follow what I want to do and what I want to say on this team, and that's it. And that's where I am. Because at this point, to fight over whose fault it's just the most ridiculous shit. It's civil war in Philadelphia right now, and I'm just tired of it. And it's going to keep going on for it's only week 4 going into week 5 and, or week 5 in general right now. So other than that, that's it. Sorry, I'm reminiscing, but that's where I'm at. You guys have a fantastic day. I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace out. Peace out.